Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jan Szrewiński. Russia's drone campaign against Ukraine has now broken a grim new record. In June alone, Russia launched over 5,000 Shahed-type drones, setting a disturbing new milestone in the ongoing war.
The new agreement replaces the autonomous trade measures which have allowed tariff-free agricultural imports from Ukraine since 2022. The revamped framework is structured into 3 tiers, the first offering just a modest opening for Ukraine on products considered by EU countries as sensitive, such as eggs, poultry, sugar, wheat, corn and honey. The second tier includes butter, skimmed milk powder, malt, gluten, oats and barley, and will see their quotas increased to match the highest levels reached since the war in Ukraine began. The third group, comprising such items as whole milk powder, fermented milk, mushrooms and grape juice, will be fully liberalized. At the same time, European farmers will get broader access to Ukraine's market, including for pork, poultry and sugar. The intensifying wave of drone attacks, which has become a regular feature of the full-scale war, shows no signs of slowing down. In fact, Russia is now capable of launching in a single night the same number of drones it once used to launch in an entire month just a year ago. These kamikaze drones have increasingly targeted Ukrainian cities, killing dozens of civilians and wounding hundreds more in brutal raids. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reported that Russia has launched around 28,000 Shahed drones since 2022, with roughly 10% of those fired in June 2025 alone. Often paired alongside cruise and ballistic missiles, these attacks continue to devastate residential areas and critical infrastructure across the country.
And the story on the EU-Ukraine trade deal has managed to sneak in before the intended footage, for which we apologize. We'll be returning to that story later on, but now we're moving on. And as stated by Ukrainian Ombudsman Dmytro Lubinets, an internal UN analysis has found Russia responsible for the explosion at the Olenivka prison back in 2022. The attack in question killed over 50 Ukrainian prisoners of war.
According to Lubinets, the report identifies weapons and ammunition used by the Russian armed forces and examines the planning, organization and execution of the attack. Kiev has said that days before the attack, Russia deliberately put Ukrainian members of the Azov regiment who were awaiting a prisoner exchange in a separate part of the prison, which was later destroyed in the explosion. Moreover, according to a previous UN report, Russian authorities prevented efforts by the international community to independently investigate the attack and contaminated evidence at the site. So far, Russia denied responsibility for the deaths of 50 prisoners of war.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul recently met to talk about future sanctions on Russia and about Ukrainian membership of NATO. Zelensky urged German authorities to use their influence to persuade Hungary into accepting the 18th EU sanctions package. Zelensky also thanked Germany for its stance at the recent NATO summit, reaffirming Ukraine's eventual membership of the alliance.
We are grateful for the support of the 18th package of sanctions against Russian aggression. I know that Europeans, as the leaders of Europe, are very close to finalizing this package. I'm aware that there are still some misunderstandings with officials from Budapest, and on our part we would like to appeal to Germany, as a strong country and as a leader of Europe, to engage in dialogue with Hungary. I believe it is in the interest of all of Europe that sanctions packages against Russia are effective, that Russia feels the true cost of this war. I want to personally thank you today for this signal we heard, one that hasn't been voiced so clearly by the German side in a long time, perhaps never. It was during the NATO summit, during the meeting at the level of NATO foreign ministers and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, that the German side stated that it believes Ukraine should be in the alliance and that this is in the interest of the security of all of Europe.
With the visit of German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul to Ukraine, Berlin is setting a new tone in the relations with Kiev. taking steps that were unimaginable just 3 years ago. This is according to Andreas Umland, an analyst from the Swedish Institute of International Affairs, who was the guest at TVP World.
This is significant. I mean, this is, I think, one of his first journeys. It comes at a critical time. Also, we have some of the most drone strikes in the last month, hitting well over 5,000 that Russia is pummeling Ukraine with. What is Germany's role in this? Because, I mean, they've been a little bit doubtful on the Taurus missiles. Can we see more now? How do you assess the foreign minister's visit?
I think that's an important visit indeed, and we have a new tone now coming out from Berlin. The major change happened already in 2022, but that was first rhetorical, and it then only very slowly transformed into material help. And now the conversation has, fortunately, too late, I would say, but better late than never, changed in Berlin. And we have now new ideas also from Berlin, like investing in the Ukrainian military-industrial complex. We have now this idea that Germany would even take air defense systems out of its own current air defense system and give it to Ukraine, thereby weakening itself, but strengthening Ukraine. These are sort of ideas that 3 years ago would have been unimaginable.
US Special Envoy for Ukraine Keith Kellogg pushed back against Russia's claims that Ukraine and the United States are responsible for delaying peace negotiations. According to Kellogg, it is Moscow that continues to block efforts to end the war and not the other way around.
Peskov's recent comments on the state of negotiations are Orwellian. Russian claims that it is the US and Ukraine stalling peace talks are unfounded. President Trump has been consistent and adamant about making progress to end the war. We urge an immediate ceasefire and a move to trilateral talks to end the war. Russia cannot continue to stall for time while it bombs civilian targets in Ukraine.
Polish energy giant Orlen has said that the CEE region is now free from Russian crude oil, following the conclusion of the last contract obliging the company to purchase supplies from Russia on Monday. The contract with Rosneft was the last element of Orlen's plan to step away from Russian oil after pulling the plug on all Poland-bound deliveries by sea and via the Druzhba pipeline. The now defunct Russian shipments were destined for Orlen's Litvinov refinery in the Czech Republic, with the company's facilities in Poland and Lithuania having been independent of Russian oil since April 2023. As Orlen underlined in a statement, the company has closed this chapter and is now fully focused on building a secure future for the region together. Orlen's refineries process crude oil from the Middle East, the North Sea, Africa and the Americas. In an interview with CBS News, the Iranian foreign minister said the country is still open to negotiations with the United States over its nuclear program. At the same time, when asked whether talks could resume as early as this week, Abbas Araghchi said it is unlikely the process could restart that quickly.
I don't think negotiations will restart as quickly as that. In order for us to decide to re-engage, we will have to first ensure that America will not revert back to targeting us in a military attack during the negotiations. And I think with all these considerations, we still need more time. The doors of diplomacy will never slam shut. One cannot obliterate the technology and science for enrichment through bombings. If there is this will on our part and the will exists in order to once again make progress in this industry, we will be able to expeditiously repair the damage and make up for the lost time.
Denmark has taken over the 6-month rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union. Among its main priorities will be further strengthening EU security, expanding the Union and setting climate goals for the next 15 years. Denmark's presidency will also have to resolve the issue of US President Donald Trump's tariffs, which are set to come into effect already on the 9th of July. Denmark will also open negotiations on the new multi-year EU budget, which is expected to involve new methods of financing for defense spending. According to the Danish permanent representative to the European Union, the goal is for the European Union to have the ability to defend itself by 2030 through more investment in the defense industry. Although the country broke away from the group of countries opposing increased defense spending, Denmark will not push for taking on a common debt to expand European armies. It will also work on the possible expansion of the European Union. This includes Ukraine, whose accession to the EU is strongly opposed by the Hungarian authorities. Polish astronaut Sławomir Uznański-Wiśniewski has participated in the first experiments aboard the International Space Station. Although conducted in space, their results could prove groundbreaking for everyone on Earth. Among the Polish experiments is the Mental Health trial, where participants study how space conditions affect astronauts' psychology and well-being. Uznański-Wiśniewski is also working on photograph, which would allow people in space to control computers with their brain. The AX4 crew additionally worked on the EEG neurofeedback experiment, which is meant to see how isolation and microgravity affect stress levels of humans in space. Beyond research, the multinational crew has also been producing promotional materials inside the Cupolae and Dragon capsules. In the coming days, Sławomir Uznański-Wiśniewski is expected to conduct lessons with Polish students.
Na stacji po raz pierwszy mamy polską misję na Międzynarodową Stację Kosmiczną
Europe is grappling with another deadly heat wave as temperatures exceed 40 degrees Celsius. Wildfires have already spread across Turkey and Greece, while casualties, including a 2-year-old child, have been reported in southern parts of the continent, including France. Zuzanna Jurek has this report.
Though these images may seem adorable, they are a reminder of the festering heat which once again descended on Europe. Southern Europe and the Balkans were among the worst affected. As temperatures hike to above 40 degrees Celsius, residents and tourists alike seek relief around the continent's coastlines.
It's really good. It refreshes you, and afterwards, when you get home, you keep that freshness.
Britain too, with its usually milder coastal climate, is feeling the heat.
Make some nice change, it's really nice.
A lot of sun cream on the kids as well as us.
I've been drinking loads of water and I put sun cream on.
But though for some the weather is a mark of summer, it can also be devastating. Wildfires spread across the Aegean coastline on Thursday, claiming forests and residential homes alike. Experts also once again issued warnings for those most vulnerable and likely to be affected by the extreme temperatures, including children and the elderly. But despite the efforts, the deadly heat has already claimed its first victims.
The child of a civilian Dassault aviation employee died yesterday on the company premises, which are part of the airbase. We are obviously shocked. An investigation has been launched by the public prosecutor in Aix-en-Provence. This investigation has been entrusted to the Air and Space Gendarmerie Company of Airbase 125.
And these temperatures are expected to persist, spreading towards Germany and Poland in the coming days. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
Over 50,000 people have been evacuated in 5 regions of Turkey as a battle with wildfires enters its 3rd day. In the Izmir region alone, more than 42,000 people have had to leave their homes, according to Turkey's Emergency Management Authority. According to the Turkish Forestry Minister, the wildfires in Izmir were fanned by winds reaching speeds of 50 kilometers per hour. The scope of the disaster prompted authorities to evacuate 4 villages and 2 neighborhoods in the region. To battle the blaze, authorities have so far employed 27 planes, 105 helicopters, 14 UAVs, some 6,000 water tankers and 25,000 firefighters. Due to thick smoke, flights have been temporarily suspended at Izmir International Airport. While the state is taking necessary measures, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has appealed to the residents to also exercise utmost care for the Turkish forests in the coming summer months. The coastal region has in recent years been ravaged by wildfires as summers become hotter and drier, which according to some scientists is largely a result of human-induced climate change. And that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news, updates and commentary.